Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'll give you, let's say, a basic introduction in open educational resources. Not because I think you don't know about it, but it's probably good to give a kind of overview at the start of a conference. I'll show you later on what I discuss. This is a bit of overview. I'll give a few minutes introduction on the topic. And please allow me to include a bit of promotional action. I'll discuss, let's say, 5 minutes, a bit of projects we do at the Open University in the Netherlands. But the largest part of my presentation will be analytical in kind, or reflective if you want. And I will treat some of the issues, problems and challenges of open educational resources. So let's start with the introduction. Of course, it's a bit of cliche, but you know today's products require a lot of knowledge to be produced effectively, efficiently. This holds obviously for consumer electronics, but also for vegetables, bread, even for our Dutch tulips. You might think that we are farmers producing the tulips, but this is biochemistry industry. You need logistics. You need waste management. It's really a high-tech industry. So for all these products you see, you need highly skilled people. And that's probably where we can use open educational resources. Let me give you this example of this, let's say, wooden card, an ancient card. To produce something like this, you would need some wood, obviously, and some metal pieces, and a bit of craftsmanship. And the general pattern is that the cost of producing such a card is largely material in kind. The craftsmanship is not too impressive, so you need to collect the wood and the metal, the materials to produce it. This is completely different today in modern vehicles. It's actually opposite. Just when you take a look at the chip inside the modern vehicle, it's more valuable than the steel, the glass, and the plastic that is required for building the car. So the graphic is completely reversed. So the consequence is, if you have a car crash, it's probably not too bad because you still have the knowledge. You can rebuild the car, and actually this is what racing teams are doing. They crash the car every day, each day, and every day they build a replica because they still have the knowledge. So keep this in mind when we talk about products and economy, and I'll come back to this later on in this presentation. Let me give you a few quotes. Know how to produce is more valuable than the products themselves. Products are physical manifestations of knowledge. A paradigm shift from processing atoms, that's actually the material economy, the traditional economy, to processing of bits, and that is referring to the digital or virtual economy. So, as a summary, this is what happens with our production. Knowledge is gradually using a larger part. So this was the introduction. Now we get a bit promotional part. Well, since 2002, the UNESCO Open Forum worldwide movement has developed, and the motto is, excuse me, is the sound all right? Am I turning too much? Sound right? Okay, I won't change anything then. The motto, reuse, revise, redistribute, remix, and possibly offer it all for free. And it's fair to say that my institution is one of the leading parties, together with the other parties here in this sheet. So what do we need for open educational resources? So I made a little hexagon here with various concepts, and I'll make a little tour here and give you some example projects we do at the Open University of the Netherlands. So we would need, obviously, content. We need resources. So what are we doing there? We launched our Open Educational Resources project in 2004. Actually, it was a bit later, someone told me. We have 27 courses, and we have over 1 million visitors ever since. And for a small country as the Netherlands, that's quite a performance. You also want to be able to find your resources, so you need to do something on federated search or the reverse federated harvesting. And one of the example projects would be the ShareTech project. The ShareTech project is also presented here in a later slot on the conference. This is about teacher education materials across Europe, and we are combining all contents in different repositories and make them accessible. You'd also have to pay attention to metadata, otherwise you cannot really find anything back in the repositories. So this is a project that has been completed already. The MACE project is about architecture, it's about building, it's a European project, it's about buildings, I should say, and it connects different repositories with information about buildings. But the important part are the metadata, often neglected, but they are crucial here because the metadata allows students to learn about the relationships between different buildings. So if you have an object, you can use a building somewhere in a city in Europe. You can use the metadata to find other buildings of the same architect or similar buildings using the same materials or having the same style. So the learning is not really about the core content, but the learning is directed by the metadata. This is quite peculiar. This has been completed now, and all technologies and methods are being transferred and being reused in another project in a completely different domain. That's the Open Scout project, also a European project, management education. You need, obviously, cross-channel delivery, or maybe I should say rich media delivery. We have our channels, iTunes U and YouTube video channels, and we post all kinds of videos there. Obviously, you need to include prosumers, activate them. We have a few projects there. We are building on a new community of the Open University with some pilots in computer science and technology-enhanced learning. And we have also the WikiWise project, which is presented here at this conference. It's a content wiki for school teachers where they can create and share their learning materials. And finally, if you have any resources, you want them to be that they can run on any platform. So you need to do something about interoperability. And one of the major projects at the moment in Europe is the iCoper project, where we're participating. And it's working on the extension of e-learning standards, and we're trying to push the borders and have some more innovative scenarios like game-based learning and things like that. So this was a little overview. Now we come to the reflective part. To be fair, I think for me there's a kind of paradox in this open educational resources. So we know knowledge is highly valuable. We also know that there's a lack of highly skilled people, and we are giving away all the resources for free. It seems a bit crazy to me. According to the traditional laws of economic theory, we could make a fortune with these resources. So why should we give it away for free? So let's decompose it a little bit in a few sub-questions. What is knowledge? How do we learn? And how can we afford free services? Let's go to the first question. As opposed to animals, humans are capable of accumulating knowledge, consolidate their experiences, and that's because we can use symbolic representations. We can just write down our experiences, our new insights. This is really impossible for animals. So we can transfer knowledge to new generations, whereas animals have to start over again. I think this animal on the left is probably as wise as the same animal 2,000 years ago. So this is a big difference. So we build culture with this. We have scientists, we have artists, we have musicians, consultants, and animals don't. But the question is, so we write books, but what is it that is stored in our resources, stored in our libraries? If I show you kind of formula, what is this? Is this knowledge? Is this data? Is this information? This cannot really be answered by me today because there's a long-lasting debate in science what this is all about. But I give you a kind of solution. It's given by Stonier in 1995, and I'll talk you through this little image. Stonier explains a gradual difference between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And it all depends on the level of understanding and the degree of integration into a context. And let's go back to this formula. Well, this is symbolic representation. If you cannot read, if you don't have understanding of symbolics, it's just noise for you. So for a cat or for a baby, this will be noise, right? So, but if you can read, you probably say, oh, there's an E and there's an M and there's a C. Maybe you even know that this might be a formula, but it's still only data. If you've ever heard of Einstein's law, you may recognize the law. You say, oh, yes, this is Einstein. There's the guy here behind the counter in the building, right? Especially include it in my presentation. Next stage would be, if you're able to apply this formula and to do calculations with it, you must have knowledge. So this is the level of knowledge. And ultimately, if you're able to, let's say, criticize the formula and create completely new theory, you must be at the level of wisdom. So the baseline is that whatever you present in symbolics and representation or in educational resources, if this is being turned into knowledge or not, it depends on the beholder. So we can have a lot of educational resources, open educational resources, but we must make sure that this is not just at the level of noise or data or information. We should push to the level of knowledge or even wisdom. I think we don't have any feedback mechanism for this now. So, second question, sub-question. So how do we learn? Yeah, obviously we use these books, resources. You can learn a lot from books, of course, but it's only half the story. If you want to ride a bicycle, you could try to use this little manual, but you'd better just go exercise. I think the guy on the right never used the manual, never read about cycling, just exercise. So for certain parts of the knowledge, resources are nuts. They're not useful. So this indicates a difference between knowing that and knowing how. And it's important to make this distinction. Knowing that is about explicit knowledge. It's about codified knowledge, things that you can read. It's about declarative knowledge. It's articulated knowledge. All kinds of terms are available. Knowing how is linked to the action. You cannot codify it. You cannot explain how you ride a bicycle. It's implicit knowledge. It's tacit knowledge. It's procedural knowledge. All kinds of terms are linked with that. And if I make a little matrix now, so on top, explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge, and vertically different levels of description, you can probably agree that open educational resources is largely in this segment, in this cell of the matrix. So we don't know if, in the vertical line, the right meanings and the right knowledge are produced, And we also completely miss the knowledge linked to action, the implicit knowledge. So what we should do is see how we can extend activities linked to open educational resources, the codified stuff, to, let's say, sensible learning opportunities. So we could offer support services, we could offer exercises, games, practicals linked with action, and we could provide some support to see if mastery is attained. So the last question about this free. How can we afford free services? Let's take a look at the economy. If you have a product like this chair, you have to buy some raw materials, and you have to hire a carpenter who builds this chair. So you have some cost. That's the little bar on the vertical scale. You have some basic cost. But you want to sell more, so you have to build more. You have to buy more raw materials. You have to hire more carpenters to produce this. And at a certain stage, you will have an economy of scale, and your price will gradually saturate, and your unit price will go down, obviously. Now, this is the traditional picture of the material economy. How about digital economy? Suppose that I produce something, a digital artifact, let's say a book or a piece of software. It's very, very easy to duplicate this. You don't need any raw materials. You don't need people to make the copies. You just press a button and you have millions and millions of copies. Probably you need a bit of a server, some space, some memory space, but that's really, the marginal costs are almost zero. And this is a complete violation of existing economic laws. We should take this also into account. But still we have marginal costs, and we have cost at all to produce these artifacts. It's a problem. Because who is going to pay if we are giving it away for free? So if we give it away for free, we have a disbalance, a deficit in our financial overview. What about micropricing? It's quite popular to say, well, we have millions of users, and let's go to the next slide. We let them pay a few cents. They won't object. We let them pay a few cents, and then the costs are covered. I'll show you what happens then. If you have more users, the unit price will go down. But obviously, it will never be zero, because we have to cover our costs. Even if we have millions of users, we need to charge them. And let's say this micropricing of a few cents, it will never be zero. If we put it to zero, we don't have revenues. Now, the problem with this singularity here, we cannot reach the zero price, is that if we would produce a zero price, we would have far more users. This is called the penny gap. So if you offer for free, the number of users will explode. And that's why we should stick to free resources. If we want a large audience, we should do it for free. And why is that? Well, consider Google. That's a free service. Or Yahoo. If you enter a keyword and you know that you have to pay 1 cent or 2 cents, each time you will reconsider, oh, do I really need this keyword? Where's my encyclopedia to find it? It's only a few cents, but it's a kind of mental overhead. It's called the mental transaction costs. These are too high. You always want value for money, and the considerations take too much effort from you. You will not use Google that much anymore. So, better opt for free. Don't do micro pricing. It doesn't work. Or it doesn't work for a small audience. So what can we do? Let's take a look at some examples. It can be done. You can offer for free. There are free newspapers. Google is free, obviously. Facebook is free. Skype is free. Radiohead is a rock band. They're crazy. They are just giving away all their records. You can download for free all their records. How did they do that? Is this just charity or what? Google is a $20 billion company. So it's possible to do it. But you have to take the right measures for this. The secret is cross-funding. I'll give you a few examples, and probably some are very interesting for open educational resources. Of course, you can use subsidies, but this is not very sustainable. It's fine to have it, but it's not a business model which you're building on. You could charge other customers. For instance, you could see in amusement park and museums, children are free. Children are happy. Parents are happy, but of course the parents just pay for their children. They don't know. It's shifting from one person to the other person. You're kind of fooled here. But we like it. Children are free. You could also offer expensive products. It's called the Freemium Model. You know these restaurants where they have this cheap food, cheap and good food, really cheap. And then you ask for a bottle of wine and then you pay a lot of money because the food is sponsored by the wine. It's also seen in a hotel. I was in my hotel. You can use something from a mini bar. Don't do it because it's far too expensive. Software, it's being used in software also. You have free license, and for an extended version, you have the premium version. And normally it's about 5% of the users are premium users, and they pay for the other 95%. Another model, you could shift to the future. You could say, open educational resources, oh, you're welcome to use them all for free, but after 1 year of intensive use, we will charge you. I don't know if people would like that, but it's an option. You could also require some extra exchange effort from customers. This is the Prosumer Model, or actually Google is doing this. Every time you enter a keyword in Google, you create added value for Google. Google can analyze your data and aggregate them over large populations and extract trends, all kinds of interesting patterns, user behaviors. Google was the best forecaster of Mexican flu last year. A lot of people entering headache, fever, and they could see something happening worldwide. It was better than any medical office could reproduce, could forecast. So, added value for Google. You could also use non-monetary incentives. That means building reputation, enabling expression. People like to write blogs, and they get status and reputation for that. Twitter is really the attention you get, the followers you can build. It doesn't cost very much, and it's quite interesting for users. The rock concert model, how does Radiohead, as the rock band, how does it work? Well, they have this penny gap effect. They have massive audience because they give it away for free. So everybody wants to come to their concert. So they give concerts. So for open educational resources, we could do the same. Not a concert, but let's say a conference, the place to be. Everybody wants to be at their concerts. That's an interesting model. This is a kind of peculiar model, but it's the last one I'd like to mention. That's the negative price model. There are some examples. For instance, in a fitness club, you can get a contract from a fitness club, and you have to come 3 times a week. And then it's free. But if you don't show up, you have to pay. So that's negative price model. Another example would be, there are these concert halls where when you want a concert, you hire a band. You have to pay the band. But there are also concert halls where the bands say, we want to play in your hall because you have such large audience. We pay you to be in your hall. So that's also the negative price model. It's very interesting. It's a bit queer, but it's nice to, well, think a bit, reflect a bit about it. Maybe we can do something here. So I'll give you a brief summary. The content is just half the story. We should extend to experiential learning, tacit knowledge, exercises, linking to action. We should also make sure that the knowledge that is being extracted from the resources is meaningful knowledge, so we might think of support services, learner support services. We shouldn't charge OER because we will lose large audiences. We should think of cross-funding. The freemium model would be an option. We should probably maybe have a worldwide federation of user data to have a massive information base. It's worth millions, probably. And we should exploit prosumer contributions. Non-monetary incentives are associated with reputation, awards, things like that. And of course, like the rock band, we might consider organizing tantalizing events, places to be. I want to be there, and I'll pay for it. So thank you very much. This was my presentation. Do we ask for questions? No? We go for coffee. 1 minute? One question. 1, 2, 3, we go for coffee.